Hey there, and welcome to Utility Sports. And today's video is going to be a fun one. We have the NBA 2020 mock draft with trades. So far, we haven't done any of the drafts with trades. This time around, we are going to look at some of the potential trades. We believe that most of these are realistic and feasible. So let's get started with the first overall pick. The Minnesota Timberwolves are going to select LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, LaMelo Ball, definitely a high notability prospect, very well known from his time at Chino Hills, and obviously overseas now with the NBL Illawarra Hawks. Had an up and down year there in terms of efficiency, only 14 games though. And I think he's got a lot of the skill set that you look for an NBA guard. He can really, move the rock. Is going to be able to dominate in a pick and roll setting. I think him and Karl Anthony Towns is pretty scary together, and as well as D'Lo. The Wolves should adopt a heavy pick and roll offense, in my opinion, and hopefully they do in the next couple of years, because the two of them in the backcourt together could be pretty scary. D'Lo and LaMelo Ball. Obviously, he's got some upside based on his size. He's got a little bit of shooting potential as a set shooter. You'll see that in a different video on our channel here. And I think LaMelo Ball makes a lot of sense here at one, especially for selling tickets. What do you think there, Austin?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's all about building the brand, especially with an owner that's looking to sell the team currently. He's a guy that will put fans in the stands and will build the biggest brand. He has a lot of social media followers already. Currently, he has more than the entire Wolves organization. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Wolves from a brand perspective. From a basketball perspective, maybe not so much. However, I think they will go with the exciting, flashy LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, moving on to pick two, obviously an interesting situation here with the Golden State Warriors. 1 year removed from being a five-time repeat visit to the NBA Finals. Warriors with some injuries this year fall back into the lottery all the way up to pick two. Some speculation that the pick could be moved here. However, they are on their clock and the pick is in at this point.
And with the second overall pick, the Warriors go James Wiseman, who's the center from Memphis. Sheldon, what do you got on the pick?
Yeah, the Warriors with the speculation around the trade, I can definitely see and understand some of the ideas there. But I think that ultimately the Warriors will decide that they're not going to get the value that they feel like is necessary for them at that point. In what many seem to believe is a deeper, less star-studded class. And I think that the Warriors then will just decide to stick it to address a need, and that need is center. You could see them even considering Onyeka Okongwu here for his versatility. Out on the perimeter defensively, but I think Wiseman gives them that rim protection asset that they need, and also a really solid screen and roll option to play with their elite guard play.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. I think he in a win now mode for the Warriors. This is their championship window. They're going to try to extend it as long as they can with all of their stars back. So I think that pick makes a lot of sense. And just to make sure that we're on the same page from a technology standpoint, are you currently having the picks go through, or do you just have the screen?
I have not been having the picks go through. Whoops. Thank you for.
Yep, just wanted to make sure that we were kind of on the same page there.
Yep,
Just
I
so the
forgot.
viewers can get a visual representation of the picks going through.
I completely forgot about it. All right, moving into pick three here with the Charlotte Hornets. Obviously got two interesting kind of dynamic guards in Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham. One more of a playmaking and shooting type, and the other one more of a slashing defensive mold there in Terry Rozier. Hornets could be looking to go wing or center, most likely at this spot in the draft. Obviously, Wiseman would be one guy that they would consider at three if he was here on the board. With him off the board, Anthony Edwards does look enticing, but we have them going in a different way. Asa, could you tell us the pick here at three?
Yeah, with the Hornets pick, we actually have Onyeka Okongwu going with this selection. A lot of it has to do with the defensive versatility. A guy that can be a roller in the pick and roll game. Really, what it comes down to is his defensive prowess, and the Hornets are targeting a center. Unfortunately, the best one in the class goes right before them. So we think they will opt to go with Onyeka here.
Yes, Onyeka. Let's see if I can find him here. I have this issue every single draft video. He's never under the thing. Let me look for Onyeka Okongwu. There's a Turu. Well,
yeah, we'll have to take a look. Maybe just click best available again. See if
I don't think he was on there. They have some of the guys from the next class on there too, which is a little weird.
Yeah, I also suggest going under what class he is in terms of
Yeah,
age.
let's go to freshman. Um,
Yep, check under there.
there
There
it
he
is.
is.
Great, great. Okay. Onyeka Okongwu goes 3 to the Charlotte Hornets. Now moving into pick 4, a pick that we've had some speculation with here on our channel. Uh, Obviously, they've got a, kind of not a filled out roster, but, a roster with quite a bit of young talent on it. And Billy Donovan's going to be looking to piece those players together. And I think this is one of the best case scenarios for them here in this draft. Where do you see the Chicago Bulls going?
Yeah, with the fourth pick, we're going to have the Bulls selecting Anthony Edwards, the dynamic guard from Georgia. I think he's an explosive player that honestly is you could possibly deem the best player available in some people's eyes. However, there is one more guy that we both have above Anthony Edwards, but you cannot deny his athleticism and scoring ability. A little bit of inefficiencies. However, if he's able to kind of clean that up, he could be a star player in this league.
Yeah, definitely. Got a lot of questions about shot selection for him. But looking at his physical profile, he's got an NBA ready frame. He's got one of the better bodies in the class, in my opinion, from a physical standpoint. Athleticism off the charts. And I think he's going to be, an NBA ready scorer early in his career. Moving on to the Cleveland Cavaliers here, obviously spent the last two lottery picks of theirs on guards in Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. And acquired Andre Drummond at the trade deadline, leaving a pretty open spot here on the wing. And I think that's where we're going to go, is the pick in here at 5.
Yep, the pick is in. It is Denny Adia from Israel. I think he's going to be a great fit for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Do you see that the same way?
Yeah, I think Avdia's got a lot of the upside as a draft prospect. He's got a really high floor. His potential, he's got a lot of assets that he's already really talented in for an NBA level. He's going to be able to play make. He's going to function as a secondary playmaker early in his career and has the potential to grow into a lead playmaker. He's some rumors that he's even grown a little bit more in the last 4 or 5 months or so. Some have him listed at 6'10". Currently, he was earlier listed at 6'8", and I think he'll probably be around that 6'8", 6'9" height. But if he is at 6'10", that'll be very interesting. He's a competitive player. He'll kind of translate as a pretty good defender in my opinion, and I think he's got really good shooting potential off the dribble. And I think Avdia would be a great fit here with Cleveland next to their guard play, and I think he'd be kind of become their capstone player to build around moving forward. Now at 6, we have our first trade here at this point. Here, this trade is centered around the Atlanta Hawks sending pick 6 to the New Orleans Pelicans for guard Drew Holiday. Obviously, the Hawks very interested in moving pick 6, and reports came out today that the Pelicans are indeed shopping Drew Holiday, trying to find some value and maybe, kind of extend their window a few years back from now into building around Zion and kind of what his time frame more so is in the NBA. At 6 here, what do we have the Pelicans going with after acquiring this draft selection?
Yeah, after that trade went down, we are going to have them take Killian Hayes. Once again, we do want to preface that we do not think he is worthy of this selection. We are just making an educated guess on what might happen here. Hayes is the pick. We do not have him very high on our own boards. However, it is very, very possible in this trade scenario that they would take Killian Hayes.
Yeah, especially with the interesting situation with Lonzo Ball. He's eligible for a contract extension this offseason, and I'm sure he's going to want to get paid fairly well for his passing ability and defensive prowess. And I think that the Pelicans are going to be a little hesitant to do so with obviously Brandon Ingram being due for an extension as well. They've got a lot of money possibly tied up into them, and to really commit long-term money to Lonzo Ball would be something they'd be a little hesitant on doing. And I think drafting a guard that they seem to have that may seem to have potential would be a way to kind of take back some leverage in those contract talks. And I think that Killian Hayes here does make a little bit of sense in terms of what the potential could be as a creator. I don't love the pick, like you had mentioned. I'm not super high on Killian Hayes myself. But I could see the value, and I could see why an NBA GM would consider this move here at 6. Moving on to the Detroit Pistons here at 7. Obviously, a team pretty much in rebuild, got a lot of needs everywhere. Probably won't be drafting based off need. What do you see here for the Pistons at 7?
Yeah, the Pistons here, we have Tyrese Halliburton from Iowa State going, who's a guard. There's a lot of rumors about Derrick Rose being on the move, which is very likely that he could be on his way out. They're going to look to, once again, tear down that roster. They are not really set to compete for an Eastern Conference title or anything near that. So I think this is going to be their pick with the knowledge that Derrick Rose could be on his way out.
Yeah, Halliburton, one of the best, if not the best college passer this past season, obviously with Avdia and LaMelo Ball both overseas. Halliburton's got, really good shooting potential, good frame, really great wingspan, compares favorably to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's been very successful in his first 2 years in the league. And I think that Halliburton will be kind of a player that you can start your rebuild around. I think you're going to need some scoring help next to him. But he's a versatile player. He's going to be able to play the 1, 2, or 3 offensively and the 1, 2, or 3 defensively. And I think that he's, kind of a cornerstone piece to really start forming some stability in Detroit. And he could play along with Blake Griffin if Blake Griffin comes back healthy as well. Moving into pick 8 with the New York Knicks, obviously a very storied franchise with not so storied success in recent years. What do you see here for the New York Knicks at pick 8?
Yeah, so we are having the Knicks go with Obi Toppin with the selection. A lot of people see him possibly as a top 3 player in the class. There's questions about where his ceiling is, considering he is an older prospect. Have we seen the best of Obi Toppin, or is he going to continue to get better?
I think he's going to continue to get better quite a bit, actually. He's kind of a late bloomer. Didn't really, get a D1 offer until his senior year of high school. Kind of similar to Russell Westbrook in that regard. Obviously, he will not be Russell Westbrook, but he's got, insane athleticism. Guy jumps out of the gym. He grew from about 6'2", 6'3" to 6'8" or 6'9" within about 2 years. And his athleticism didn't disappear. He's got some guard skills, able to handle the rock a little bit. He's got some face-up potential from that. Really good quick burst, great athleticism. He runs the floor really, really well, runs the floor like a guard, but in a forward body. And I think he really actually translates really well as a small ball center at some points with the ability to stretch out to the three-point line a bit. He has to grow there still, but he's got definitely the potential there. And I think offensively he's one of the more sure things in this draft class. And I think the Knicks here at 8 would get not only a guy that could really help them long term, but also a guy who's going to fill up seats. He's going to be a fun player to watch in the basketball mecca. Moving here at pick number 9, the Washington Wizards, obviously a playoff hopeful with John Wall coming back, potentially trying to re-sign Davis Bertans. They've got a lot of holes though as well. Bradley Beal is possibly on his way out. However, we both have mentioned that we do not think that is likely. And that's why we have the Wizards still sticking here at 9. The pick is in, I'm hearing.
Yep. So for the Wizards, we have them taking Devin Vassell, who's a guy who could fill in that wing spot for them, which they've obviously created a hole there of trading Kelly Oubre and Porter being on his way out, or he has been off the team for a while. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Wizards to go wing, and Vassell's the perfect fit. We feel this is a steal at 9.
Yes, we do. Yeah, Vassell's got really great two-way potential. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Paul George, who did go 10th in his class. So we have Vassell going here at 9. It is possible that a player between 9 and 10 can be all-star level players and really impact winning. He's got really great athleticism. He's got some shot-creating potential, can really stretch out to the three-point line. Recent videos showed some alterations to his jump shot, which neither Austin nor myself loved. We were actually kind of hesitant on having him as high on our boards after those videos surface, but if he does kind of move back to what his conventional shot looked like, which was very good, he's got the tools to really be a good wing in the NBA, and I think he'd be fit really well in with Washington immediately next to Wall, Beal, Bertans, and Thomas Bryant if Bryant comes back as their starting center. Moving into pick 10 with the Phoenix Suns here, obviously a great 8-0 run in the bubble. A lot of fans and media members are very high on their chances to make the playoffs. Next year, we are a little bit less high, but we do think there's a lot to build on for them at this point. And I think that there's one player that really sticks out here for the Phoenix Suns. We'll see if they go that way. The pick is in.
Yep. So for the Suns, we have Isaac Okoro, who is a great wing defender, has a lot of versatility for you. And honestly, that's what the Suns need a lot of is, more defensive help and guys that are switchable 1 through 3. So I think Isaac Okoro makes a lot of sense for the Suns here.
Yeah, definitely. We have in previous mocks mocked Okoro 6 to the Hawks, and obviously now with the availability of Drew Holiday, you're kind of getting Okoro as a sure thing at that point, and a guy who is going to be a very good player and kind of help the Hawks win. And that's why Okoro falls a little bit here in this mock down to 10. This is probably the absolute floor for where he could go. Just looking on the board, Okoro, he's going to be the most versatile defender in this class. He's going to be able to guard 1 through 4. Incredible athlete. He's really, really quick on the perimeter, great feet, good slashing potential on the offensive end. Has a swing skill of shooting that, that's a question mark for him right now. But if that does come around, he's got, some real offensive potential as well, based off of his production inside the arc. And I think Okoro would be a really great fit with the Suns. It would also make Kelly Oubre a little bit more expendable in trade talks, in my opinion. And, at that point, you're kind of building a young core around Devin Booker that, kind of play to some of Devin Booker's weaknesses to kind of fill out that roster. Pick 11 here, the San Antonio Spurs, a team that has not been in the lottery for quite some time. A little bit more of an up-in-the-air selection here at this point. Class, kind of a little bit of a level down here at this point from the top 10. And just some question marks about how Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs will draft here. The pick is in, I am hearing.
Yep. So we haven't seen the Spurs pick this high in 20 years. So this is always going to be kind of a question mark on where they'll go. And this is kind of a weird spot in the draft to begin with. So for that reason, we are actually having them go with Aaron Nesmith. And we think this is a good spot for him to land. Obviously, if you're going into a great system like San Antonio, they definitely need some shooting out there. So I think this play makes a ton of sense for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, Nesmith obviously only played about 14 games this past year, but he got quite a few three-point attempts up. He's shooting over 8.5 a game, got up over 100 attempts, and was shooting over 50% from three during his sophomore season at Vanderbilt. He's gonna be able to space the floor, like Austin was saying, kind of open up that interior game for LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan, assuming both of them do come back as Spurs next season. And I think that he'll be a real offensive upgrade for them over some of the wing play that they've been getting from some other players out on their team. And obviously they've been pretty reliant on guard play from players like Patty Mills, DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker, and often playing 3 or 4 guards at the same time. And I think, getting a bigger shooting wing could really help them in that area on both ends of the floor. Moving into pick 12 here, we have another trade to announce. The Dallas Mavericks move up from pick 18. They also give up pick 31 and Justin Jackson to the Sacramento Kings to move up for this spot. Obviously, some speculation on who they could be wanting to move up for. They've been rumored to be wanting to move up, and I think that it is very likely to go out and jump ahead of the Celtics and Pelicans for this next player that they want. Austin, announce the pick here and then give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so for the Mavericks here, they are moving up to take Tyrell Terry, who's a versatile guard out of Stanford. Definitely see a great fit with the Mavericks here. He could be a secondary ball handler, and honestly, he can shoot very, very well. He's one of the more underrated players in this class, and people are now beginning to learn his name, rightfully so. I think for the Mavericks, this is great to build in a, they're starting to come into this win now mode, and I think for them it makes sense to go and get possibly the best player available at 12 here. That's still currently available.
Yep. I definitely agree there with Tyrell Terry. I think that he's got a lot of those skills that the Mavericks are looking to add. He's got, the ability to run off of screens out on the perimeter. He's going to be able to move without the ball, catch and shoot while on the move, off the move. He's going to be able to, stand and shoot off of Luka Doncic's dribble drive penetration. And then when Luka's out of the game, the Mavericks really badly need a guy who can manipulate the pick and roll a little more consistently than players like DeLon Wright and Seth Curry can. And I think Tyrell Terry's really got that potential to not only be a good shooter off the ball, but, kind of work the pick and roll himself. And that's a heavy part of Rick Carlisle's offense. And I think that he is the answer there at pick 12, assuming they do make a move up, because I do not see him getting outside the lottery in this draft. Moving into pick 13, the Pelicans here with their second selection. We did have them go with Killian Hayes first, and Austin here announced the pick, and then give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so for the Pelicans here, we have them going Patrick Williams. Last year, obviously, they took Jackson Hayes. They're going to get another athletic freak here in Patrick Williams. He's definitely going to be the 4. We've seen him listed in as a 3. We've seen him listed as a 2. But he has the body for a 4. He has the athleticism for a 4. He moves like a 4. So I think every indication is that they would be possibly looking to go and look for a 4. He kind of reminds you of Derek Favors, which I think they're going to move on from here. Not ideal, but you are getting him a lot cheaper than a Derek Favors to begin with.
Yeah, definitely a very, compact body type, very, very, strong and formidable body already at this point, very athletic. And I think he fits really well next to Zion Williamson, much better than a conventional big would. I think he's, like people are going to say he's a 3, like you were saying. I just think he's not as skilled to really fit that position offensively. But defensively, he's got potential to guard the wings from time to time. And he's going to, this will be the time when you see Zion get more small ball center minutes. And I think that's kind of the direction they're going to go. They're going to try and put some shooters around and some athletic defensive monsters that can try and really, build up what they've got. And at this point, if you're a Pelicans fan, you're probably feeling pretty good about a Killian Hayes pick if you're able to grab Patrick Williams later at 13. You got one guy who is probably going to come in and be a contributor within the first couple of years. So even if the Killian Hayes pick doesn't work out, and then you maybe have that home run potential with Hayes from pick 6 earlier. And at that point, you've got a really nice young core to build around, assuming you keep Brandon Ingram. And I think the sky is kind of the limit there for that team. Moving into pick 14, the Boston Celtics do have 3 first-round picks at this point. There may or may not be a trade coming later for them in the video. The Celtics, obviously, been a very competitive team for the last few years. Great wing play. Daniel Tice, I think they really like him at center. Austin, what do we have the Celtics going here at 14?
So for the Celtics, we have Sadiq Bey, another 6'8" forward. I think for them, as they are looking to add forwards, I think it makes a lot of sense to add a guy like this who can shoot. I think this is a very Celtics-esque pick. I think Tyrell Terry would have been the pick if he would have lasted, but that is part of the reason why the Mavericks had to move up and jump the Celtics.
Yeah, definitely. I think Sadiq Bey fits in well here. Another shooter type that, he's going to be able to play off the ball next to Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker. Obviously, Jaylen Brown likes to have the ball here and there too. So I think finding a selfless offensive player with good defensive potential to kind of fill in their wing spots a little bit more for depth purposes, especially with some of the injury history that they had this past season. And I just think at that point, they're kind of protecting themselves long-term, depending on what their roster kind of looks like in case of injury or in case, a certain player asks out. Not that any have at this point, but I think Sadiq Bey comes from a winning culture at Villanova, very successful player in college, and I think that he'll continue to grow with the Boston Celtics in a very reduced role early on. Moving now outside the lottery at pick 15, the Orlando Magic, kind of a staple 8 seed year to year, possibly could blow up their roster, but at this point, I'm assuming they're just going to run it back. What do we have the Magic going here 15?
Yeah, so for the Magic here, they are the kings of mediocrity, unfortunately. They'd like to finish in that A seed. But if you're a Magic fan, you might have help on the way with Theo Maledon, who's a nice playmaker. He can get to the rim. He's not, a terrific shooter or anything, so there's nothing really to be excited about there. But you can finally get rid of DJ Augustine, depending on how you feel about him. I think ideally you'd like to move on from DJ Augustine. Just having a backup point guard to add to the rotation when you run it back, when Fultz is out the floor, you get a guy that can handle the ball. So I think Theo Maledon's a great fit for the Orlando Magic here.
Yeah, definitely. He gives you some long-term backup play for sure, and kind of an insurance policy behind Markelle Fultz's injury history. You obviously don't know how long DJ Augustine's going to plan on staying in Orlando. At some point, he'll become a valuable veteran near the mid-level exception for some teams. And I think Maledon's got, the potential to be a quality guard in the NBA. Don't really love his upside, but I think that he's going to, really stick around for a while, have a 10 to 12-year career. And I think he's got a lot of value. He reminds me a little bit of Tony Parker, obviously without the success. I don't think he'll be nearly as successful as Parker, but he's, a creative under the rim finisher. He's got good size though to him, 6'4", 6'5". And I think he'll really fit in the NBA game very well early in his career. Moving on to pick 16 here, the Portland Trail Blazers obviously fought into the 8th seed with some injuries. Hopefully Nurkic will be healthy this whole next season. They'll be a little bit better than, in my opinion, than they were this past year, just based on health. There's obviously some needs on the wing, maybe a backup guard. Even center could be in the cards here for the Blazers with Hassan Whiteside going out. Austin, bring us the pick here and then give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so real quick before I announce the pick here, I encourage everybody that's watching the video to subscribe. It's really important to us that we continue to have your support through every video. We'd love for you to stay up to date. So hit the bell icon button in order to get notifications. For the Blazers here, we have them going Jaden McDaniels, who's a 6'10 wing from Washington. He's got kind of a slender frame, a little bit of inconsistencies in college, has some issues with his coach, so that's going to affect his pre-draft stock. He was benched during the year. This isn't really a talent thing. I think he just had a lot of issues going on with his coach. So anytime that happens, it's hard to stay in rhythm. So honestly, he went through a lot of turmoil over the year. It's going to hurt his draft stock. We think he's an extremely talented player. I think Portland would be very, very happy to see him there at this selection.
Yeah, McDaniels, we actually have another video on the channel, so go check that out now. We'll put up a card for that on possible draft steals that could be outside the lottery. And McDaniels is one of those guys that fits that 6'10" frame, like you mentioned. Skilled, can handle the rock, can get his own shot off. Obviously, some questions about efficiency and also his ability to get along with the coach there at Washington. But we do have him here sticking in the Northwest region of the United States and playing for the Portland Trail Blazers going into his rookie season. Now the Timberwolves on the board with their second pick in the draft. We obviously have them take LaMelo Ball at pick 1. Obviously, some questions here about where they could go. They need some more wing help. Could use a little bit more front court depth. What do we see here with the Timberwolves?
Yeah, with the Timberwolves pick, we're going to opt to take Jalen Smith, who could be an effective shot blocker at the next level. A little heavy-footed in terms of, for a center moving his feet defensively. I think for the Wolves, it makes a ton of sense to go with the Jalen Smith pick. They definitely need some more help, like you had mentioned, in the front court.
Yeah, he gives them a rim protection option behind Karl Anthony Towns. Cat over the years has struggled with some injuries, and I think that kind of really, shut down their season this past year before he could really ever get going. With Cat out, their offensive efficiency goes way down. I think that they could use another defensive defensive help point on their roster, and I think Jalen Smith covers both of those things. He's got some potential to stretch out to the three-point line. Offensively and defensively, he's going to be able to protect the rim. He's, like you mentioned, heavy-footed. He's going to struggle in space just like Cat does, but at least he's going to be a rim protection option, and I think he's going to be able to deal with post-ups very well as well. Moving into pick 18 here now, the Kings with their first selection after moving out from pick 12. There's some question marks about if Bogdan Bogdanovic will be there. Harrison Barnes could potentially get shopped. Buddy Hield could likely be on his way out. This could be a completely remade Sacramento Kings roster. And I think that they're going to be an interesting team to watch here in this draft. Where do we have the Kings going at 18?
Yeah, we're going to actually have them go with RJ Hampton with this selection. It's going to be really hard to tell where their pick would be before the draft, just considering how much movement there could be as soon as the offseason starts. So we're going to have them go with RJ Hampton.
Yeah, Hampton, a bigger guard, probably will fit well with De'Aaron Fox. He's got some defensive upside, could function as a quality playmaker and ball handler. We don't necessarily love RJ Hampton. We think he's a little bit overrated, doesn't really convey some of the skills to be a real scorer in the NBA, and I think that kind of hinders his potential. But I think here at 18, the Kings will be willing to, run that risk on RJ Hampton and improve their backcourt. Pick 19 now, the Brooklyn Nets, a team with championship aspirations, obviously for good reasons with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Also a team with in the news for trade possibilities. What do we have the Nets going here, and walk us through that pick and the reasoning behind it?
Yeah, so for the Nets, we did discuss that there's a possibility that Karis LeVert gets shipped this offseason, depending on, I'm not exactly sure who they would be targeting with that trade, but there has been a lot of rumors surrounding that. I think it makes a lot of sense for the next 4 years to have a guy like Tyrese Maxey. That's who we are selecting here. He's kind of an insurance policy if you do opt to trade him. He's a very, very nice player. He can slash. He can shoot a little bit. He's a pretty versatile player through and through offensively.
Yeah, definitely. He has some of those skill set that's similar to Karis LeVert, like you were mentioning. and he'll kind of not make Karis LeVert expendable, but obviously more willing trade piece for them if they were to go out and get a guy like Bradley Beal or possibly make the move for Drew Holiday. They would be willing to move on from that if they could guarantee that Tyrese Maxey will be there on a rookie deal for the next 4 years and kind of give them that backup guard play behind Kyrie Irving to really, try and move their team forward overall while still keeping some of those nice young valuable pieces. Pick 20, the Miami Heat obviously had a very successful season getting all the way to the NBA Finals in the bubble. Jimmy Butler and company would like to get back there at some point with Bam Adebayo. Goran Dragic is a possible free agent this offseason, could be moving on, but I do think a reunion with Miami would make some sense. Where do we have the Heat going here?
Yeah, so we considered a number of players here with this selection. Depending on what happens with Dragic, they might take a point guard to kind of hedge that. However, we do think that Dragic will stay around, and we have them going with Josh Green, the shooting guard from Arizona. I think he steps into that Miami system really well. He can shoot it, and he's a pretty athletic player, and we really like the fit with Miami.
Yeah, he's got a lot of defensive upside. He's got good length. He's going to be able to fit right into that zone that Eric Spoelstra loves to run there. But he's also got the competitiveness and the quickness to really deal one-on-one as a perimeter defender in man-to-man situations. And I think him playing right next to Jimmy Butler and possibly if Jay Crowder stays around, I think that's a really formidable defensive lineup. And I think that he gives them some depth behind Duncan Robinson and kind of bolsters up that backcourt a bit with a non-lottery selection. I really like that for them. Pick 21 now, the Philadelphia 76ers obviously brought in Doc Rivers as their head coach, hoping that he can unlock Tobias Harris and also the Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons combination. They're hoping that they can improve overall while not having a lot of flexibility with their roster. Pick 21, kind of up in the air at this point. What do we have the Sixers going?
Yeah, with this pick, we have them selecting Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony is the guy that'll step in and contribute right away. He'll kind of hopefully take over the Shake Milton role, if you could possibly remove him from that role. Otherwise, he'll kind of play what Trey Burke was for them a couple of years ago. So I think the Cole Anthony pick makes sense. They need another point guard. And honestly, you could feel like you're getting decent value here at 21 with him being on the board.
Yeah, definitely. Many had seen him as a for sure lottery pick earlier in the year. Some inefficiency at UNC did pull him down from that range in many mocks. And here at 21, I think that's a pretty good spot for Cole Anthony. I think he'll be able to come in, manipulate the pick and roll, look to score for himself while also having another guard on the team that's really, pass oriented as a playmaker. And also Simmons defensively can complement Cole Anthony well. I think the two of them could even play together at times. Obviously Simmons would have to play some more of that forward role offensively at that point. They're still going to need to look to add some shooting out on the perimeter, but I think Cole Anthony gives them that dynamic scoring guard that they've been looking for in the past years. Moving on to pick 22, the Denver Nuggets, obviously another great team based off their run this past playoffs. And they're kind of a team that could take a risk here. Is that what we have the Denver Nuggets doing at 22?
Yeah, we have Alexei Pokusevski going here. He's an international player. He's a guy that has a pretty good skill set. However, he is very, very thin right now, and he's probably, 1 to 2 years away from actually truly making an impact. The Nuggets are not scared of project players, injury-concerned players. We've seen that with Bol, Michael Porter Jr. And then they do find these project guys like Nikola Jokic in the second round. So I think that if the Nuggets are going to take a risk, they're going to take Pokusevski here.
Yeah, definitely. Pokusevski, biggest thing for our viewers to know is this guy can pass the ball. He's 7-footer, really lean, as you had mentioned, and he has guard vision and some guard talent. And with the Nuggets draft history, look at Nurkic. They took Nurkic, and he's a very good passing big man. Nikola Jokic is arguably the best passing big man of all time. And that's something that they apparently seem to value there. GM Tim Connolly seems to value that. And I think that Pokusevski makes a lot of sense there with what is a roster that's, pretty well established at this point. They don't really need to be worried about missing a pick here at 22. And I think Pokusevski could be, a scary addition down the road. He's got the ability to stretch the floor. And as we had both mentioned, the passing ability as a big man. And I think the Nuggets, that would be a home run pick for them. Moving into 23, the Utah Jazz, obviously some questions if they're going to blow up their roster a little bit with Gobert, possibly on the way out. At this point, we do not see a Gobert trade likely. We do think an extension could get done there. Where do we have the Jazz going at 23?
Yeah, for the Jazz, we're going to go with the explosive guard Kyra Lewis Jr. from Alabama. Definitely think he fits in with the Jazz. They're not necessarily worried about shooting. Obviously, over the last couple of years, they've kind of lacked shooting all around. He can get to the rim. He's extremely explosive, and I think this is a very Jazzy pick.
Yeah, I think Kyra Lewis really fits in well. I think that he gives them that backup guard play that they need behind Conley and Mitchell at this point. I think Kyra Lewis has some potential to grow into a dynamic guard in the NBA level. He can shoot it off the catch fairly decently. Needs to improve as a shot creator himself, but north-south, this guy is incredibly quick. He's going to be a transition nightmare for opposing defenses. He really, really moves. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Eric Bledsoe, younger Eric Bledsoe, or kind of Colin Sexton, another Alabama guard product under Coach Avery Johnson. That's kind of where he would like to recruit is athletic guards, and Kyra Lewis fits that mold. And I think that would be a really good pick for the Jazz here at 23. We could even see him going as high as 10 possibly. So he's kind of got a bigger range on where he could fall. And I think the value here is really, really good for the Utah Jazz. Moving into 24, the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, a lot of pressure on them this year to really compete for a championship. Giannis possibly could be leaving, and I think they're going to do everything they can to win. We couldn't really find a realistic trade option for them at this point, so we do have them staying on the clock here, and the pick is in.
Yeah, for the Bucks, we have them going Jamias Ramsey, who is a guard from Texas Tech. Really what the Bucks are kind of lacking is a creator, and I think he's definitely a guy that can come off the bench and create for the Milwaukee Bucks. Could be a potential 3-level scorer, could be a potential gem in the draft. There's another video on that on our channel, so if you'd like to tune into that. But Jamias Ramsey makes a ton of sense for the Bucks.
Yep, definitely. He gives them, that shooting threat, like you were mentioning, something that they obviously want around Giannis. They like to put shooters around him. And he's also got some combo guard potential. He can handle the rock a little bit, can run the pick and roll as a self creator. Definitely needs to improve as an overall playmaker. But that's obviously something the Milwaukee Bucks are willing to take at this point. A guy who can come in and shoot, give them those Kyle Korver minutes. A little bit younger, way more athletic, and also just kind of something to build around in case Giannis leaves. He's got good shooting potential. And I think that he fits right now and possibly long-term into what they're trying to do there in Milwaukee. Moving on to 25, the Oklahoma City Thunder obviously have a huge amount of picks moving forward after the Paul George and Russell Westbrook trades last offseason. And here is one of their first times getting to pull a trigger on a draft pick. What do you see the Thunder going?
Yeah, so the Thunder are definitely going to need some help in the front court with Danilo Gallinari, most likely being on his way out to go win somewhere. The Thunder will not be doing that this year. We're going to have them go with Precious Achiuwa, the big man. I think that he's a guy that's going to be able to contribute right away. But honestly, I'm not super pumped about Precious Achiuwa, the prospect.
Yeah, I'm not either. I think it kind of fits well into what is their Sam Presti, their GM's draft history. Likes to draft, contributors from good college programs. Memphis is really becoming that. And he's a guy who some see maybe as a back-end lottery selection even. We here at Utility Sports do not really believe that. We think he's, kind of more limited as an offensive player. He does have good defensive mobility, though, and he'll be able to move in the pick-and-roll game pretty well defensively. And I think he's kind of a pick that maybe gives them a little bit of versatility between the 4 or 5 in case they decide to move Steven Adams. But he could play alongside Steven Adams early in his career as well. Has a little bit of shooting potential, but we don't necessarily love him. But at 25, we can definitely see the value there for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, another trade here at pick 26, we do have the Indiana Pacers, and we also have them again at pick 30. This is in a Victor Oladipo trade in which they send Oladipo and Justin Holiday to the Boston Celtics for Gordon Hayward, who's on an expiring contract after this year, assuming he picks up his player option, picks 26 and picks 30. Obviously, the Pacers will be looking to stay competitive in that market. They don't want to, kind of enter a rebuild, especially after committing money to Sabonis, Turner, and Brogdon. What do we see here for the Pacers?
For the Pacers here, we're going to have some international flair with Leandro Bolmaro. He's definitely a guy that he's a pretty flashy European. He can pass, he can handle the ball, he can get to the rim. Shooting is quite a bit of a question mark. We do think he will be okay enough to make it in the league as a shooter. But obviously that's not one of his strengths. So hopefully he can work on that, continue to get better. But he's a really, really intriguing prospect.
Yeah, he's got, high reward, high bust potential here. He could turn out to be a very, very good starting level player with potential to function as a secondary playmaker. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Joe Ingles, but, a little bit more flair, a little bit Manu Ginobili in him. But at the same time, he could be out of the league within 3 or 4 years. And that's why he's so low in the first round here at pick 26. But I think a team like Indiana that kind of has that infrastructure, assuming that they acquire Gordon Hayward in this trade, I think that they'd be willing to, take a risk on a player like him at that point, and, kind of roll it over. And maybe he turns into a really, really good contributor for them down the road. Now I pick 27, the New York Knicks. Obviously been linked to almost every point guard in the entire draft class, with them going Obi Toppin at pick 8 earlier. Do we have them going point guard here?
We do have them going point guard. We didn't have them feel pressured to take one at their earlier pick, but I think Nico Mannion's a nice player to have with Obi Toppin in the pick and roll off the bench. I think these guys will do a pretty good job working together. Nico Mannion's not a super high upside guy, but he's going to be a guy that comes in and contributes right away. He does not have that star potential or anything, but he will be just a consistent bench player for at least his first year and possibly starter in the future. But I don't see a ton of upside with him.
Yeah, the second Arizona Wildcat to go here in the first round, both between 20 and 27. And Mannion, he's a solid player. He didn't have, quite the year that many were assuming he would have at Arizona. I think really his strengths come as a playmaker, a guy who's going to move the ball. He can run the pick and roll a little bit, has a nice floater to him. But I think his scoring potential is really limited. I think that he's going to kind of be suited to be that backup guard, maybe kind of function as a very low-level starting point guard for a little bit in his career, kind of like DJ Augustine has for the Orlando Magic in years past. And, at pick 27, you're not always aiming to hit a home run here. You're aiming to get maybe a guy who can give you a little bit of stability in that backcourt. And I think that Mannion possibly does that for the New York Knicks. Now looking at pick 28, the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers here. They could be looking to get an established college guard. He possibly could be shopping this pick with, someone like Danny Green looking to improve their roster. But we do have them staying on the board here. Where do we have them going?
Yeah, so they are opting to stay with this. They are going to take Trey Jones from Duke. He's a sophomore currently. The established guard, being his second year, very consistent defender. He's definitely better defensively than his brother Tyus, but once again, those offensive limitations, lack of explosiveness, not really a shooter, not a terrific playmaker. He's a pretty good playmaker, but he's not tier one in this draft class anyway. Just a very solid prospect. Once again, it's not going to be one of those boomer bust guys. You're kind of know what you're going to get with him with the selection.
Yeah, definitely a safe pick here. A guy who's going to fill in some rotation minutes in the regular season, maybe get a few playoff minutes depending on kind of how he plays in his rookie year. But long term, you could kind of see him fill in like a Quinn Cook role, a guy who's going to be able to come in and function as a secondary playmaker for a team off the bench. Keep the offense moving, and he's a competitive defender. And I think you really laid out all the points that are important to bring up with him. And I think that's when you're the Lakers, you don't have to be swinging here for something great. I think that, a safe pick here and a guy who's going to be able to stick around in the league for quite a while is a pretty good selection here at 28. Moving into 29, the Toronto Raptors obviously have been very successful in years past in drafting, also acquiring undrafted free agents with players like Fred VanVleet and Terrence Davis. What do we see the Raptors going here at 29?
We have the Raptors selecting Zeke Naji, very back to the basket oriented center. Honestly, I'm not super pumped about this one either, but if there's a team that's able to possibly develop a guy like this, it would be the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, and Naji, a little bit like Achua, is kind of that tweener big where you're not sure if he can really play the center because of his size, and you're not sure if he's really mobile enough to really play the 4 at the NBA level, and he's kind of in between that. But that's kind of what the Raptors like to do a little bit with Serge Ibaka kind of was the king of that for a little bit. Obviously, a very good rim protector Ibaka was. But I think Naji's got some of those same characteristics that Ibaka has. I think, Obviously, he won't be Siakam. He's kind of more Chris Boucher to me, but I think that kind of fits into what the Raptors really look for in bigs. A little bit of versatility, some screen and roll potential, a little bit of, possibly stretch the floor into the mid-range game potential. And I think Najee makes some sense here for them. And again, they're another team with the infrastructure that, they could take a safe pick and wait and, kind of develop him a little bit more than having to really, try and find a guy with the highest potential. Moving in here to the final pick, obviously pick 30 here, part of that Gordon Hayward, Victor Oladipo flop. Where do you see the Pacers going here with 30 after Bolmaro goes 26?
Yeah, I see them looking for a wing possibly here, and we're going to have them taking Desmond Bane from TCU. Once again, he was a multi-year starter at TCU. You kind of know what you're going to get with him, and he's definitely going to be a contributor right away on a playoff team.
Yeah, definitely. He's going to be one of those guys that comes in, eats up those minutes of Justin Holiday, assuming he does get dealt in that trade. He's a good shooter, very good NBA-ready body. He's going to be able to physically deal with other wings. Obviously going to come off the bench early in his career and probably a majority of his career. But he's a depth wing, and, if you're the Pacers going into next season with Brogdon, Hayward, Turner, Sabonis, obviously then Bolmaro and Bane, you've still got Aaron Holiday. You've got quite a few pieces to kind of build around. And you're a pretty young roster, and I think that they're one move away from really becoming a contender at that point if that move is for a really high-end player. So I like the Bane pick here to round out pick 30. Here is a look back at the overall selections. Austin, what do you kind of think here about this draft? Who do you have as a winner, loser, and how do you feel overall?
Oh, yeah. So taking a look at potentially some winners out of this, I think the Mavericks are winners here. Honestly, they do not need Justin Jackson. He's a nothing on their roster. Pick 31, really. Not a guy that's going to contribute right away for them. So I definitely have the Mavericks getting Tyrell Terry as a winner. He's a very, very good player, added to a championship hopeful team. Other winners that come out of this, I think the Cavs should feel pretty good at 5 getting Denny Adia with their selection. I think you should feel really good about that. A loser out of this is the Pelicans getting Killian Hayes at pick 6. Not a big fan of Killian Hayes, like we mentioned prior in the video. With that, they do trade Drew Holiday. So immediately you are losing on value there by just trading the much better player for a worse player ultimately. So I think the Pelicans are definitely a loser. Who are your winners and losers in this?
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Pelicans as a loser. In terms of a draft haul, Patrick Williams and Killian Hayes, you could sell yourself on a little bit, but with the idea that you're giving up Drew Holiday to get there, I don't love that either. I think that the two of them, they're both upside picks and they both could really pop, but at the same time, they could be probably the two worst guys taken in the lottery this year, both of them. And I think that there's, a big risk there for New Orleans. Obviously, they've got some of the young players that they're willing to take some of those risks possibly. I think a winner here would be the Chicago Bulls getting Edwards at 4. I think that if the Hornets really do feel like they need to grab a big man, Edwards falling to 4 is likely. And I think that's a really great pickup for them. At that point, he can play next to Levine. Obviously, they could be looking to move Levine at some point if Edwards does come in and succeed early. I also think that the Brooklyn Nets would be a winner here at 19, getting Tyrese Maxey. I think that, he's one of those guys who had a down year at Kentucky. I don't think he really played to what his game is. And I think giving him some time to really develop into the NBA, I think he could be one of those guys we see, really function as a real solid bench scorer or, secondary guard for a team that can really, run the pick and roll, combo guard. He's got some defensive upside, and I think Maxey could really fit in well there. Overall, I feel pretty, confident actually in what this class looks like. LaMelo Ball Smith to the Wolves is interesting, and McDaniels I think would be a really good high upside pick for the Blazers as well as 16. I think he's got for sure top 10 potential, possibly if everything gets harnessed correctly for him. Questions on efficiency and consistency are definitely there, and I think that the Blazers with LaMelo and McCollum could really afford to run that risk as well at 16. That's kind of my overall thoughts here. Again, make sure to like and subscribe if you are new to our channel. We definitely love having you guys come in. Leave some comments down below about what your favorite team is, who you want them to draft, what you think about our mock draft here. and we'll be looking forward to pumping out more draft content for you. We do have something coming out on LaMelo Ball, so make sure to check that out. And thanks again for watching the video.